The metaphor of fire in our show, though, it's symbolic of this force that we think we can be in a dance with. We think we have control over fire. We think we can dominate it. We harness it to warm our food up, to warm our bodies in our homes, until it goes, oh, you shall not control me. And it goes back to that question that Dennis posed. Why are we drawn to the very things that are capable of destroying us?
Hi, I'm Michelai Graham, and this is Boardroom Talks. I'm here with Jurnee Smollett. We're going to talk all things her new Apple TV Plus show and much more. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful.
Good.
I'm happy to be here talking to you.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us here at Boardroom. We're going to talk all things, like I said, smoke. Of course, want to hear about your career trajectory. You've been a star forever, your whole life, if you ask me. We're having a discussion in the office, actually, about what we all differently knew you from. Everybody said a different show, a different movie,
I love
something of that nature, and that just was proof that this was going to be a good conversation.
Oh.
So, like I said, you've been working in the industry for so long, with your earliest roles going back to Full House, Eve's Bayou. What do you remember most about these early days of your acting career?
That's a great question. You know, it started off here in New York. I was born here in Queens, Elmhurst, Queens. And I've been in front of the camera since I was 10 months old. My mom was like pounding the pavement here in New York. My older siblings were doing like modeling and commercials. We were with Wilhelmina and then Ford, you know, and some of my earliest memories are just being in production, being on set, being in front of the camera. And it was fun to me. You know, it was kind of like Little League is for kids. It wasn't something that was taken so like intensely serious.
Yeah.
I just remember there being key moments that I fell in love with it. There was something about the live audience with some of the earlier like sitcoms that I just fed off of, and being able to do something that made them laugh, or in between breaks, if there's music playing, I would like dance for the audience and entertain them, and getting that immediate feedback. Obviously I didn't know then, but that's an artistic high.
Yeah.
Like having that artistic exchange and an impact on somebody.
Yeah.
But I think with Eve's Bayou, that was really when I fell in love with the craft and this idea that you could think the thoughts of a character, you could lose yourself into a character and make choices in the moment, be present. That was for sure the project where I knew, okay, this is something I would want to do for the rest of my life.
I love that. That's a perfect transition into my next question. What are some business lessons you had to learn as a kid or just early on in life that the typical kid wouldn't be worried about if they weren't an actor or an actress?
The power of no. My resume's not 50 pages long. I've consistently worked, and I just keep my head down and do the work. But my mother was very fierce. She was, you know, early on, she was my acting coach. She was my manager. But I can vividly remember conversations that she would have with my representatives and the bar that she set for maintaining integrity. And she would say to me, you know, the second you sell your integrity, you can't get it back. Mm-hmm. And so there's no price tag for it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share something a little vulgar. She would be like, you know, I can sell you on the corner if I want to make money. Like that would be my mother on the phone with my agent. She was like, this is not about money.
Yeah.
This is about integrity. It's about credibility. And she had us study the art, the craft, you know? And so money came so much later in my career. Throughout like most of my career, I was not actually making a lot of money, but was able to maintain artistic integrity.
Yeah.
And was able to work with the greats, you know, and learn and grow. And just make it about the work. And I think that's how you can have longevity.
And you've talked so much about your mother being so integral in the beginning of your career. At what point did you think it was important to build out a team around you to represent you? Just even looking at you walk in with your team today that have helped you look so beautiful as you do. All of those pieces are important puzzle pieces to building you up to who you are today. So what really turned, you know, this into a full-blown business model for you?
It's taken me several years to put together the team that I currently have. Throughout my young adulthood, it was very hard for me to cut folks off, folks who were asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
I'm very, very loyal, and I believe in certain values like that, like loyalty, respect, and certain honorable values. I won't bend on that. If someone's asleep at the wheel and they're not additive to the team, then you got to make adjustments. And that, I think, has been one of the biggest shifts I've had over the past few years. I'm fortunate because I have found, whether it's agents, my attorney, she is phenomenal. Yeah. She is one of the few Black female entertainment attorneys who is a partner in her firm, Nina Shaw. And I've learned so much from Nina, truly, of leadership and how to get the best qualities out of members of your team.
I love that. I love that. Okay, let's pivot back to your career a bit. How do you approach choosing projects today versus, having more input when you were younger?
I'm willing to take a risk on certain elements, but I can't take a risk on everything. So you've got the script, right? You've got the character, you've got the cast, and you've got the filmmakers, the storytellers. You can take a risk on maybe one or two of those,
but not all four.
But you can't take a risk on all four.
Uh-huh.
So the script could be great, and the filmmaker could be great, and you'd be willing to take a risk on the cast.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a smaller character or something like that, but there's other elements. And so I really just follow my instincts with it. Is it a character that is forcing me to grow? Is it a character that's come to me in which I have to exercise something in my own personal life through the character?
Yeah.
Is it a filmmaker I really admire? Like Justin Chazelle, I did a film called The Order recently that came out last year with Jude Law. I am invested in Justin's vision and believe in him as a filmmaker and want to work with him as a filmmaker, right? Luckily, the story's also, the script's great, and the cast is Jude Law is amazing, and the character. Instinct, and it's also knowing I can't risk too much.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You have Smoke coming out on Apple TV Plus, June 27th. What specifically drew you to this character in this role?
My agent, Dar, sent me the scripts. He had been actually tracking it for a few months. We were aware that Dennis Lehane was creating a project as a follow-up to Blackbird, the project that he and Taron Egerton had done for Apple TV Plus.
Yes, back in...
Sensational.
Yeah, 2022, right?
Yes, sensational project. And I was a fan of that limited series, but also I was a fan of Dennis Lehane. I mean, Mystic River, Shutter Island.
Shutter Island still haunts me.
Come on. This man is truly one of the greats of our time in writing crime thrillers and suspense. And so I just was approaching it honestly as a fan of, what is he creating next?
Yes.
I got word that Dennis wanted to meet me. They sent me the first 3 scripts to read.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by this character, Detective Michelle Calderon. She's so complex. She's so multifaceted. And when I met with Dennis, he said to me, Jurnee, we all say we want to be happy, and yet why are we drawn to the very things that can destroy us?
Yeah.
And that's Michelle in a nutshell.
Yeah.
She is a woman who's a former Marine, who's now a detective, who has these high values of justice and righteousness, and yet it's not beyond her to break the law. She's someone who is engaged in a toxic relationship with her boss, who's married, who leaves his wife for her, only for her to be like, now I don't want to.
Mess.
Yeah, she a little complicated. So as an actor, it's a gift to be able to embody a character with so many different contradictions.
Yes. And there's so much complicity in this show, in this story, right? With some of the, events being inspired by John Leonard Orr's and his arsonist activities.
The metaphor of fire in our show, though, is, it's symbolic of this force that we think we can be in a dance with. we think we have control over fire. We think we can dominate it. You know, we use it, we harness it to warm our food up, to warm our bodies in our homes until it goes, oh, you shall not control me, you know? And it goes back to that question that Dennis posed in our first meeting was, why are we drawn to the very things that are capable of destroying us?
No, that's real. And you star opposite Taron Egerton in this thriller, and he's worked so closely with Dennis on multiple projects. What was it like preparing for this role and creating that on-screen dynamic with him?
I loved working with Taron. He is a fantastic actor. He does something in this show. It's unlike anything he's ever done. And honestly, I met the brother at the table read. You know, and
you would never know.
But look, we're both professionals. We both do the work, the prep work. You know, I did a lot of research on my own, spoke to several experts in the field, former Marines, detectives, arson investigators. I spoke to a therapist to pick their brain about Michelle's attachment patterns. She's very much so an avoidant.
Yeah.
And attracts anxious people. I think when you do the research and do the work on your own, the goal is when you get on set, it's invisible. So whomever you're in a scene with, if you both have done the work, you can just get there and behave.
Yeah.
So I have to say, Taron and I, we just found different colors of their relationship. 1 minute it's innocent, like a brother and sister. Next minute there's some tension.
Yeah.
Next minute you're like, are they gonna kill each other? You know.
You need all three.
I mean, it's toxic. We'll leave it at that.
Yes, absolutely. And you've worked on such a wide range of ensemble projects. Friday Night Lights, Underground, Lovecraft Country, of course. What do you enjoy most about collabing with ensemble casts?
It's almost like you're in a ballet. And everyone, you know, you just find the rhythm, you find the flow with each other, composing a symphony together.
Yes, absolutely. And across all of your roles, are there any characters that have stayed with you personally after filming?
I honestly, I approach my instrument in a very spiritual way. And so I do believe, as I said, that all of my characters come to me when there is something in them and in me that I have to exercise through them, right? So I think every single character stays with me. And I think every character forces me to grow in my instrument, in my womanhood, my understanding of humanity. That's what art does. You know, it helps us gain a deeper understanding of humanity. So I think all of them are still with me in some way.
I love that. And can you remember a time or a role or a character you've played that you might have been intimidated by after reading the script for the first time, and then you decided this is something you needed to tackle and take on?
That is going back to one of your earlier questions. That is actually
what drives you.
One of the things that makes me lean in.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, ooh, does this give me a little bit of butterflies?
Like, if it doesn't, then
why are we doing it?
You're right.
It's true. Years ago, one of the greats, Forrest Whitaker, said to me, he said, Jurnee, lean into the nerves. He said, if you don't feel that feeling before you're about to take something on, then it means it's not challenging you enough. You're not going to grow from it.
That's real.
And so it definitely is something I look for, of like, does it thrill me and does it make me go, ooh! Oh, how are we going to do this?
That. Like, I know I'm about to be in it, but now I need to see
how are we going to do this? You know, then, yeah, that's one of the things that gets my juices going, and it definitely is fuel for me.
Absolutely. So, like we just talked about you being a part of different ensemble casts. If you could reunite with one of your past ensembles for a brand new project, which cast would that be now that you're in a different phase of your career?
Oh, that's a good question.
You can't say all of them.
I'll just say the first one that comes to mind was the Underground cast. It was such a good ensemble. Everyone, Aldous, Amira, I mean, everyone, Alana, like it was just stacked with folks. You know, Chris Maloney,
Yeah. You've done so much across film and TV. Is there maybe one role or project that you think people have slept on that you would want them to resonate more with you when they think of you and all your projects that we just discussed?
I never think about that. Just keeping it real.
That's
I
real.
don't. No, it's like I put it out,
Yeah.
and how people receive it is actually not my business.
I love that. I mean, like I said, when we were in the office, literally every single person said something different. And we were all just like, wow, we're all different ages, and we're all, have seen your work at different points in our life. So
the goal is at the end of the last breath that you created some sort of library, some sort of museum. And like any museum, every person that goes in is drawn to a different piece of art. And each piece of art affects everyone differently. You see something completely different on that wall than what I see.
Yeah.
So it's really not my job it's not my business how it affects everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about Lovecraft Country. It earned you an Emmy nomination, and it felt like a historic moment for representation in genre storytelling. How did this role challenge or push you in your creativity as you took it on?
Anything that Misha Green writes is inevitably going to challenge you and push you, because she is like, I'm pushing you, Jurnee. Yeah. It pushed me in a number of ways, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I had to exercise, people out of my house, as well as Letty had to, right? There's a number of ways it made me confront and submit to that ancestral spirit, that blood memory. It made me confront a lot about my lineage, my grandmother. I wake up every day so privileged and blessed that I am living my grandmother's wildest dreams. She was, from Galveston, Texas, beautiful woman, single Black mother of 4 children, raising them in the South in the 50s and 60s. She cleaned the homes of white folks. She would wake up and have to make breakfast, be there early enough to make breakfast for their kids and stay all the way until making dinner. She couldn't make meals for my mom or my mom's siblings, and the privilege that I have. I thought about that a lot in those lines sometimes when like Letty was like, I'm not going to clean up the homes of white folks, and like that rebellion spirit that Letty had was in direct response to that time that my grandmother was living in.
Yeah.
That time that said there is no place for a Black woman to be her full and whole self.
Yeah.
And Letty was able to live so unapologetically herself, despite all the boundaries around her, all the adversity around her, and one of the things I love so much about Misha's intention with that project was about us reclaiming our magic and reclaiming the light inside of ourselves.
Absolutely.
And what has been stolen from us, and the attempt to erase our history and erase our very existence cannot actually happen without our participation. And so don't participate in it.
Yeah.
And so, there was so much that Letty brought out in me, and it was truly, truly the role of a lifetime.
Absolutely. And, watching the show, there was sci-fi, there's horror, there's history in a way that we rarely see for Black stories. Yeah. What do you think made it resonate so deeply with audiences, especially, the Black community, who was in an outcry, an uproar when it wasn't renewed for another season?
I think a lot of the response that we got was that it did feel so fresh and original and innovative, and that we don't get to play in the horror space enough, that we don't get to play in those genres enough. I think Misha has such an ability to flip genre on its head. When we took on Underground together, a lot of people in my life were like, you gonna do a slave drama? Why are you gonna do a slave drama? And I was like, it's not that.
Yeah.
This is an uprising. Yep. It is a revolutionary story. It is a prison break. Mm-hmm. And it's about the folks who were revolutionaries. And so a lot of the feedback we got about Lovecraft was similar. It was that this felt disruptive. Yeah. So, it's a privilege to be a part of art that can impact folks in that way.
Yes, absolutely. And I just was obsessed with your wardrobe during that whole show. I still am not over it, from the hair to the outfits and everything.
Shout out to Dana Pink.
Did that. Can you talk a little bit about like how that aspect, wardrobe, impacts your performance and how it takes part in, you know, your characters and how you choose to show?
Look, me, Jurnee, I love fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And clothes, to me, it's an extension of how we express ourselves. It's what armor are you putting on today? And so regardless of the character, I think I put a lot of intention into all the details: hair, makeup, no makeup, as it was the case with The Order.
Yeah.
The director and I, we were like, she don't wear no makeup.
Yeah.
You know, which was freeing in its own sense. But with Letty, the makeup was an armor. You know, she's not going out. And that's how my grandmother was. She would clean the toilets with lipstick on. She looked like, I'm telling you,
Just
she
in case
looked
somebody
like
snapped the photo, she ought to be ready.
for her own dignity.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, you're not going to rob me of my dignity. This is how I want to express myself. Not that you need makeup to be dignified. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
But for her, it was her way of expressing that she was a beauty queen.
Yeah.
She actually was. She was one of the first Black Miss Galveston
Period.
beauty queens, you know. But so with Letty's costumes, there was a lot of intention that Dana and I put into, well, what is she saying in this moment? The color tones, the patterns. What is she wearing? Red. There's a lot of intentionality into that, because she didn't have all the money. But maybe this was something she took from the curtains. She sewed and made this fabulous dress and stole the curtains in a hostel she was staying in, you know, like.
And it looked good.
She found a way,
Mm-hmm.
baby.
Absolutely.
She found a way.
Absolutely. So as you continue building your body of work, is there a particular genre or storyline or just type of character that you're itching to explore?
One day, it's on the vision board.
Mm-hmm.
One day when the time is right, when the project is right, I really want to do a musical on Broadway.
Mm.
Your face was so unexpected when I said that.
I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. But then I went right back to just seeing you in different roles. Like, yes, I need to see dancing. I need to see singing. I need to see some pin curls. I need to see red lipstick.
I feel it.
Yes.
Yes, I would love to do that.
Okay, it's going to happen. We're speaking into an existence right here. So looking ahead, what's your biggest personal or professional goal as you continue to grow on camera and behind the scenes? What can we look forward to with you and your work?
Currently on the vision board is, definitely stepping behind the camera more in all ways. Producing, directing. I really want to be a part of the solution. I have no interest of continuously complaining about the problem if I'm not going to participate in solving it. So just expanding the gaze of who gets to tell stories in our industry and helping usher forward stories that feel disruptive, stories that feel innovative and original and fresh. And the voices, you know, I produced a film that came out, Sony Classics released it last year, called We Grow Now.
Yeah.
And Michelai was our director. And it's this small, beautiful little story about two little boys and their friendship in Cabrini Green in Chicago. And I love that movie so much, and I love what we did. I want my little son to be able to see himself on screen, right? And I want Black boyhood and Black joy to be in the big screen, right? And then I want to see us all being able to do things that we've notoriously been told we cannot do. So that's definitely part of the mission moving forward.
Amazing. Well, those are all the main questions I had. Is there anything else you would like to share with us before we wrap up?
I mean, Smoke comes out.
Yes. Watch
June
Smoke.
27th.
Yes.
Watch it.
Amazing. That was Boardroom Talks. Jurnee Smollett, thank you so much. We appreciate you for coming and hanging out with us at Boardroom.
Thank you for having me.